Okay, that was a commercial break, I guess. Another forced commercial break. My phone keeps heating up. I'm going to have to figure out some other way to do this because obviously my phone can't handle the magnetism that is Dave Nelson and the Quarantine Kitchen Happy Hour. Speaking of which, Quarantine Kitchen Happy Hour right here, people. Let's have another little sip here, and we will continue this little Coco Vaughn cooking class. I've got my camera in another position here. Hopefully we have a little more airflow on there to help out, okay? It tends to run a little hot. Now, we were talking about my vegetables that I'm going to be adding to the pot. I've got some celery, I've got some parsnips, some onions, some mushrooms, and we're going to be working in some garlic. I'm going to start with that garlic, and then I'm going to start working up these vegetables. Let me get a little sip of this bad boy, because this Burgundy is quite nice. And again, Burgundy is the wine of Coco Vaughn, okay? So I'm very, very excited about all of this. Oh, delicious. Absolutely delicious, okay? So, I'm gonna move a few things off my board and we're gonna get this party started. I have some grits on the flame. I'm gonna kind of move over there so you can kind of see that. And they are cooking along. When my camera died, I gave them a little taste. And they're not even close, okay? So, we are gonna get into these veggies. Let me kind of adjust this, and I think you can kind of see my board. I'm gonna try and work at a new angle here. First vegetable is gonna be garlic. And with that garlic, I wanna flavor the oil in my pan. We have spoken about this many times before. I'm taking off the bottom little piece of garlic, and I'm smacking that garlic with the side of my blade. Don't leave that little piece on the end of the garlic, okay? All those little pieces are going into my stock pot. That's flavor. Boom. Okay, I'm gonna roll those garlics in my hand. I cracked them, they just come right off. Their clothes just fall off. Come on, baby, let's do it. Okay, that one's clean, and another one. And that one's good to go as well. Let me get rid of all this garlic paper, as I call it, because that's what it feels like. You're seeing me all moving fast because you guys have seen garlic from me before, okay? I'm gonna cut these garlics into slices. This is kind of a peasant dish, and so I want those big chunky pieces with it, okay? Let's see, making sure you can see there. And I'm just cutting across the face of that garlic. I did some of this morning just like this, country style. I wanna go ahead and steel my blade a little bit, okay? Let me show you that. We got to do this every class, right? At least a couple of times every class, really. I tend to go backwards. I kind of hold the back of the blade, gentle strokes, and I use the whole blade and the whole steel. I'm going on both sides of that. Hey, Peggy, you're back. Good to see you, young lady. Can you hear me okay? I'm going to kind of wipe that off a little bit, making sure there's nothing on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and start slicing garlic again. Hopefully this camera will stay a little cooler at this new studio angle. There I go, slicing it on up. When it gets too small to hold, I kind of push it over on its flat side and then just slice that last little bit. And then this last one, right across the face, like a razor blade. Push it over, get rid of that last part, push it over, and that's it, okay? So the first step of most one-pot dishes are getting some fat in the pan. Now earlier I did some rendering to get the fat in the pan. I wanted to use up something that's in my kitchen, my quarantine kitchen here, right? We never throw anything away. And a few classes ago we made a chicken stock. And when that chicken stock was done, I harvested the fat off of the surface of it. And so there is my fat in that little dish there. Now, I have a pot of fat that I keep around for cooking purposes, but this has a little bit of stock in it. And if you're using rendered fats, you don't want to leave the, you don't want liquid to be in with your fat, okay? So I left it out on my main cache, and I'm just gonna use it up right now. I'm gonna put it in the pan at a low temp, and I'm gonna let it kind of simmer the liquid out, okay? This is a very common cooking technique. It's called clarifying the fat. So again, this is just a little side thing I wanted to talk about. If you're using rendered fats, you don't want the liquid in there. First of all, it splatters, but also if it's stock or something like that and it's kind of mixed into your fat, that stock can turn bad, right? It can go bad on you, and now all of your fat cache is bad too. You want your fat to be very clean. So no liquid in the fat. This has got a little bit of liquid in it. So that's going to snap, crackle, and pop. The liquid is the very same liquid that we use for our coq au vin, so all appropriate flavorings here and everything. This is chicken fat, it's chicken dish, okay? It's all going to taste good. Earlier we were using the mule foot hog bacon, which I still have. I have been tasting this bacon, by the way, and you can taste past the cure, and what I mean by that is it's got a very, very unique flavor, and it's not the cure and the smoke on it, it's the meat that it is made from, that mule foot hog. It's a definite, distinct flavor profile to that, okay? I've only had a mule foot chop once in my life, but this bacon, I mean, you can definitely taste it. It's not a gamey flavor either, it's just unique. Now you hear my pot, it's snap, crackle, and popping over here, okay? It's making noise because it's got liquid in there. I'm gonna let that liquid kind of simmer out, and we're gonna start low and slow. You can even see some of that liquid. By the way, when I'm cooking with whole butter has water in it too, and I have to do the same thing. I'll simmer it out before I say add flour to it to make a roux or something like that. I don't want that water in there. Butter has water too. And so I've kind of turned this down a little bit, and I'm just going to let it sit and kick this garlic off to the curb. We're going to put that garlic in 1 second once this fat kind of simmers, kind of slows down. I wanted to talk about clarifying the fat though. I'm throwing all of the culinary technique at you that I can in this process. That's why it's taken me so long to make everything. The next item I want to kind of get going are my mushrooms. My onions, by the way, we blanch those in the morning and just for a few minutes, and then I squeeze each onion and it just spits right out of its peel. And so that's an easy way to peel these guys. We got that little papery outside off of all those onions. So they're set aside. The mushrooms themselves are just right here. I'm using big old creminis, nothing special here, okay? Peasant mushrooms, if you will, right? And I'm going to give these a little wash here, and then I'm going to cut them up. Many people do not wash their mushrooms, but sometimes they grow those mushrooms in manure, and quite frankly, as I was saying to Ms. Amy Graybish, and she was saying to me, we try to keep as little feces in the food as possible. We try to keep it out of there, okay? So I like to wash my mushrooms, okay? I've been saying that one for years. Big old fat mushrooms. This is our vegetable tonight. And I wash those mushrooms really quickly. I don't want them soaking in water. And there they are. So I got a bunch of mushrooms. Dry this guy off, and I'm going to reuse this bowl. And I'm back. Scene change. All right, I want to kind of dab these mushrooms just a little bit. Again, my oil's cooling down. I don't want to throw that garlic in a super hot fat. It'll burn instantly. So I'm cooling that off. I just wanted to get the liquid out, as I said. And now I'm going to do a little bit of mushroom prep setup, okay? So my mushrooms are all washed, and I've dried them a little bit with a paper towel. And now to do mushrooms, I tend to do these with a paring knife. And my favorite paring knife are these little cheap, very lightweight Forstner paring knives. It's just a kink of mine that I developed over the years. I love these knives. And when I'm doing mushrooms, I want to keep everything close, okay? We were talking about this morning. I usually grab a couple of mushrooms at a time. I cut this guy in half, and I'm going to wedge these guys, okay? So I'm just cutting from the center outward. I like a big, chunky mushroom. In fact, I like big, chunky food. Pointy, I love that. Natural. And I'm just going to go through these. Notice how my hands are right over the bowl. I'm not moving to the bowl with every motion. And when I'm grabbing 2 mushrooms, these are big enough to where I'm really talking about 4 pieces here, right? So grabbing 4 things at a time and making wedges. Chunky. I love chunky food. These wedges are kind of the size of my pearl onions, kind of in that neighborhood. So it makes sense. Something I often talk about is like, pick a size and go with it. I've mentioned that in my other videos here. Oh yes, I love the fungus. We're almost ready for this garlic to go in. And what we're going to be searing here is a little bit of a sear, okay? I'm going to get this fat just hot enough to sear, but not hot enough to burn this garlic. That's going to be the trick. I want to get that garlic flavor in there and then hit it with the mushrooms, and they're going to suck it up. Fat is flavor. and we were making the fat into garlic flavor. Last mushroom. This one got a little wet. It's all going to be good. All right. So there they all are, beautiful, chunky. I love that, okay? I got chunky looking garlic. I got chunky looking onions. That's gonna be kind of what's happening in there. While these guys are getting some color on them, I'm gonna cut up my celery and my parsnip that are extra veggies, and I'll work them in. Parsnip first probably, takes a little longer to cook. I can toss it in, it cooks a little bit while I do the celery, and then it just works in, okay? So we call it progressive cooking. We work in those vegetables as we need, okay? So my oil has calmed down here a little bit, and I'm gonna go ahead and add this garlic in there, and I'm gonna start bringing up the heat very slowly. My fire is still on 1, which is nothing. Just kind of warm. Look at that sauce in the background back there. You can see it. Oh. I've got some extra fat here. If I need more fat in the mix, I'll be working some more in. These mushrooms are going to soak up some fat. So I'm going to be using some duck, bacon, and chicken fat that are melted together that I get at butcher shops. I'm going to hit these grits over here. Still cruising along nicely. And yeah, that white is starting to look a little more transparent, but I guarantee they're not even ready to taste yet. I use that same trick with risotto. Every time I every time I'm done stirring, I want to round off the pot, kind of clean up the sides, because it gets a little crusty in there. All right, back to my garlic here. I'm turning up my flame to about 5 or 6 out of 10. And I'm going to start smelling that garlic now, okay? Once you start smelling the garlic, it's going to be very soon to the time to start throwing veggies in there. I'm going to go onion first and then mushroom. I want to get these guys pretty hot. Not hot enough to burn this garlic though. I'm sauteing the garlic. I'm going to turn down my grits. They're yelling at me over here. They're saying bloop, bloop. You're doing good. I've got a little fork right here. I want to knock some of that garlic apart. There we go. That's more like it. Okay, there they are. I got some garlic cloves going in there. And now I'm going to advance that heat up a little bit, and I'm going in with my onions. One of them, I left the skin on, and all you do, again, there it is. I just pop it, and I'm going to throw that extra peel in my stock pot. So there are some onions, and I'm going to stir those around and let them get a little bit of that garlic flavor on there. I also want to add a little bit of salt. I can add a little pinch of sugar too. I think I'll use honey. Just a tiny bit. I'm not trying to make a glazed vegetable here, but add a little sugar to the pan, and it'll give us a little extra color. So I just use some honey. And let me just roll those guys around and get them coated with all of that flavor. And now I'm advancing that heat even more, and I'm going to drop in some mushrooms as well. I want this to get kind of hot here. I'm going to spread things out, let some steam escape. We've kind of talked about that. And I'll guarantee I've got to add a little more fat into this thing. Let me get a spoon. And I can already tell. I'm going to give it one toss. It's kind of a different toss. I'm using a sauteuse. It's a straight-sided pan. And it's kind of a different toss there. I want to spread all of that out, and it is. I'm going to add a little more fat. It's just looking a little bit dry in there. Those mushrooms are like sponges. They soak up a bunch of fat. I'm sure if you've ever cooked a mushroom, you know how these fungus can be. So while that's getting a little bit of color, I'm going to cut up some parsnip and some celery. Parsnip is on deck. Just a nice little chunk of it. And again, just add more vegetable to the palate. I'm just going to do kind of a rough dice, kind of smaller pieces. This will be kind of in the background, like with the, if I had onion dice in there or something. I'm going to do the celery about this size too. And I'm going to give this a little toss. I'm just going for a little color, and I'm starting to get some. I think you can see a tiny bit of color there. It's working. And I think you're back. I'm going to dice things. I think my phone is staying a little cooler over there by the window. And a little more parsnip. These are going to be just background pieces. And they're going in very shortly here. And I'm going to do some celery as well. Bump up my vegetation. It's just going to kind of disappear. And here we go. Right across. You guys have seen me do this stuff before. I usually cut my celery down into short pieces and then cut those short pieces into sticks, and then I can dice them up like nothing, like butter. All right? So I think I'm going to give this mushroom mixture a little stir. It's looking beautiful on this side. Let's give it a toss and see what it looks like afterward. Definitely picking up color. And I'm getting some browning over here on this side. Oh no, chef, what should I do? Well, gosh, Billy, it sounds like a little splash of that Bordeaux, that Bourguignon wine would be awesome in there, right? To add a little flavor to this. I'm also going to look at cracking in a little bit of pepper because, again, black pepper, a classic French flavor profile. Michael Cross, good to see you. Roxanne O'Brien, it's on its side. The film is on its side? You gotta be kidding, right? Oh my God. Can I get confirmation of that? Wow. Anybody? Anybody out there? Michael Cross, Roxanne? On its side. That's awesome. Can anybody let me know? 2 people watching. Everybody watching. Nobody else is saying it's on its side. I'm going to keep on cooking, guys, until somebody says something. Okay. So I got a little black pepper in there, guys. I'm also going to add a thyme sprig in there to toss around, okay? It's going to start getting some of that thyme flavor in there. We are losing you. It's on your side of the network. I see. I see. It's getting a little bit dark in there in the pan. I just got to keep cooking, guys. I'm sorry. It's getting a little bit dark in that pan in this corner right here. And so I'm going to do a quick little deglaze in that pan. I'm going to use some of our bourguignon. Just clean that up with a little wood spoon, roll things around in there, and I'm going to get my parsnips going now. I want you to see the color of this in a second here. The mushrooms are really picking up some golden brown color, okay? It's very important when we're doing mushrooms. Here goes parsnip in there. But very important when we're doing mushrooms that you get a sear on those guys. It's like mushroom times 10 when you do that. If you've just got this washed out gray looking mushroom, there's no flavor in that. You got to get a sear on those babies, and that's what I'm getting right now. I'm adding all my celery too. I think I'm going all in at once. My thyme is in there cooking along with it. And I'm getting some nice flavors and colors going on. This is beautiful, okay? Let me give you a little shot of that. We're developing color, and we're gonna let it develop color a couple of times while we step away while it does that, okay? So step away from the pan. I'm going to check my heat. I think I'm going to roll it down to about 7 out of 10, okay? I was using rocket fuel up until now, and now I've cruised down, eased up on that. It's about 7 out of 10 right now. Kimberly Jensen, good to see you, young lady, in the house. I'm just checking around the pan, looking for dark spots. I'm kind of scraping them with my wooden spoon. Just looking for trouble spots. And I'm doing pretty good. If anything, this front edge here closer to you guys could use a little bit of work, but I'm going to let it go slightly longer. Spread it out, step away from the fungus. Oh, it's going to be good. Oh, Mrs. Nelson, she's so lucky. So lucky she is. To Mrs. Nelson, everyone. Mrs. Nelson, here, here. Ms. Peggy, good to see you. What's that? Yeah, I think we're doing okay so far. I love that spoon. Yeah, you like that spoon. Mother-in-law got me a set of these things. One was longer than this one, and this one, that one broke, but this one's hanging in there. I like how short it is. I can really get some torque on this thing. Spoons. Wooden spoons, guys. If you don't have one, you need one. I just bumped it up to about 8 out of 10. It started getting quiet in there. I'm going to give it another little toss. Step back in frame. There she is. Boom, boom, boom. And just keep it rolling. I'm kind of cooking it now just to kind of get those onions softened a little bit. They're almost there. You don't want to have raw onion in the center. I have developed a little color on this front side, so I'm going to hit it with a little bit of wine. Now, for safety's sake, you should always pull your wine away from, or your pan away from the flame. And then step back in. If you're doing something like brandy, it's much more important. Wine, not so much. It's probably too nice of a wine for deglazing, okay? I'm going to be drinking the rest of that. I'll deglaze with a Kendall Jackson. Sorry, KJ. I just cleaned up that front edge there. And, you know, my pan's not doing much, so I'm going to crank up that heat again and get a little more color on these guys. I'm just talking, it's slowing down here. And I'm using my spoon, my grit spoon for that. Bad chef. Stirring my grits, I think it's probably about time that I check these out. That 5-to-1 ratio, it doesn't look like I'm going to have to do any adjustment to that. It's still got that nice flow. Notice how it flows together when I draw the spoon through it. That's what I'm looking for. I don't want cement. You see how it flows back together? It's lava. That is what I always ask my students for right there. 5-to-1 was perfect, okay? But it might need some more cooking time, so let me give that a little check. A little check. I think you guys are lined up. Yeah, you guys are lined up. Get a little spoon. Give this another try. So I gave it a little taste. What I'm looking for is, this is like a rough polenta, right? And that rough polenta, it's still going to have some little soft bits to it. It'll have a texture, in other words, right? This has a texture to it, but it also has little bits of grain that are still sticking to my teeth. I'm not quite biting through them all the way, and that is my definition of a cooked grain, is like it's not sticking to my teeth. I was talking about that on another show as well. So we're still at that undercooked grain stage. Ms. Roxanne O'Brien was not lying. These grits take about an hour to cook. In fact, let me get that temperature up on them a little bit, because I don't hear them making any noise. And I don't hear you guys making any noise. Let's do another one of these guys. And we're going to take a look at my mushrooms, onions, and bacon. Now it's getting a little bit sticky in there. So I'm going to get my spoon and make sure nothing bad is happening. We're doing fine. It's all caramel in there. From that red wine, it just kind of caramelized in there, and now I got a lot of golden brown on the bottom. The parsnips have picked up some beautiful color. Things are looking very brown and nutty colored, and indeed, it's quite beautiful, if I may say. I say it in every show, guys. Sometimes I get lucky. Look at the color on those onions. Simple stuff. It just gets me. It gets me right there, you know. There's nothing fancy. I'm not making lemon crowns or, you know, apple birds here. It's just straight food, and it's just so beautiful, okay? Let me see. I'm going to get another hit of red wine. I'm going to use the cheaper stuff this time, okay? Melting some of that golden brown fond on the bottom. All of those little crispy bits on the bottom. We call that fond. And that is our friend. Good stuff. And going around, still that was just a tiny bit of liquid. It's almost all evaporated. Just about enough to kind of clean everything up. I'm going to do one more little one like that. Still got a little bit of brown over here, and I lost my wine. And that'll do it. All of this wine is reducing all the way down. Changing that flavor profile. Once this cooks down, it doesn't taste like raw wine anymore. It tastes like wine syrup. Sugars caramelize and reduce, and flavors concentrate and change. And when I just did that little deglaze, check the color of things now, okay? That's not just red wine on there, that is also melted caramel from the pan. It's beautiful. We're glazing these vegetables that are going with this coq au vin. I am just being so anal about it, but it's gonna be so good. Don't forget, we have that chicken that was cooking all day since this morning too. French soul food, baby, this is awesome. Okay, I think these onions and things are about there. I'm gonna turn that heat to like nothing, okay? It's just on warm right now for a little bit of maintenance. I need to do a little bit of scene maintenance here because my OCD is kicking in. Let me get another one of these guys. And we're gonna get back into it. Let's see, get rid of this bowl. And I gotta check my grits again. We're getting close. The timing of this, I feel, is going to work out perfectly. Stir in the grits. And I've got my, as I said, my pan is turned all the way down, okay? What I want to do now is I'm just going to taste a little bit of those vegetables that I tried. I have a little bit of salt in there, but I was also, doing mushrooms. They take a lot of salt, right? And so I want to get a little taste of this and see where we are, okay? I've got a little mushroom and a little parsnip here. Whew. Sorry guys, I'm trying to eat here. I want a little bit of salt on these veggies. And also, everything's so sticky. Also, I've got this little bouquet garni here, and I do what's called the Nelson flick. Everybody calls it this. And I just kind of flick any loose little leaves off of there. And then this guy right here, I'm going to throw that in a stock pot too. The Nelson flick. Everybody calls it that. Hashtag Nelson flick. You better believe it. All right, so let's see. I'm going to add about half of my bacon in now. I could have done a lot more bacon. And the other half's going on top. For the judges, I've got a cat yelling at me over here. The true judge in the house. Let me go ahead and stir that bacon on in, start releasing a little of that bacony flavor in there. I've already got bacon fat going in there. And it's looking just gorgeous. I'm really liking the color of this, guys. Let's take another look at that. Just like beautiful hazelnut color all around. Couldn't be happier, okay? What I want to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and start shoveling this stuff on top of my chicken here. So it has its own flavors going on, but this is also going to start blending a little bit as well. Again, I cooked this chicken with vegetables, but they just turned to mush with that long process of cooking. Long cooking process, if you will. Kind of showing off the chicken a little more out of there. Bringing up some of the skin I was talking about. And you're seeing lots of bacon and the rest. That is a pot of chicken right there. So here it is without any sauce. It's practically naked. Notice I'm not smashing things down. I want to build things up whenever I'm plating, okay? Look at those that focal point of those 2 feet, or 2 legs back there. Sorry, feet, that sounds gross. And we're getting ready to finish up this sauce for the pot. My grits are here. Let me give those a stir. My grits are kind of angry. I'm watching them a little closer now. And you want to watch that heat. If these guys start sticking on you, they can scorch. Once you get a scorched flavor in your grits, in your polenta, anything like that, once you get a scorched flavor in there, you're never getting it out. If it scorches, just pour it out of that pot into a fresh pot. Don't try and scrape the scorched stuff into it. Grits are still rolling. I might add just another drop of water to this. Just a little more moisture to soak into those grains. If it's thick, there's no moisture to soak in. So just add a little bit more, and then I can kind of worry less about it scorching. Now let me do a quick wipe down, and we're going to work on some sauce here. And let me grab a little finish. 2 finishes. I've got the finish, the butter. That's the finish for my grits, okay? I'm just doing very, very plain grits. And then the finish for my chicken is I'm actually going to do a little experimental thickening here, which we don't see very often these days, but back in the old days, they would use blood as a thickener. And so we did the processing the other day. We harvested that blood, we put it in a little bit of vinegar to keep it from coagulating, and then I'm going to go ahead and work it into the sauce. Now I'm going to turn on my sauce, and I'm going to get it to the boil on one edge here, so again, it's going to push fat over to the other side of the pot. You're going to see that. My grits are still working over here. Still giving them a stir. I think I can maybe just start skimming this sauce a little bit anyway. But what I wanted to do is just kind of pull a little more fat off the surface of that sauce. This is that nasty cup I was using earlier. Now I've developed a skin on the surface. I'm going to remove that, and that's going to take some impurities out of there. So kind of skim the skin whenever that develops. And again, that skin, I'll throw that in a stock pot. It's good stuff. What you don't want to do is stir it back into your sauce. It'll be lumpy. It'll create lumps. So I'm pulling the chunky stuff out of there. And again, I'm just heating this up, getting it up to the boil, so I can work with this blood. I'm cranking it now. We got to get up there. You guys you're busy. You got places to go. Now I don't want this to boil for a long time. My sauce consistency is actually not bad. I kind of like my sauces at home a little bit on the thin side. I don't like a thick old sauce, like thick clam chowder. I'm not into that. But we are doing a cooking class here, and I want to play with this old school method of thickening here because I've had the opportunity to play with it. Come on, baby. This is very, very old school. Like I said, this rooster, a farmyard rooster, very, very tough, ideal for coq au vin. I'm using an ancient breed of lard hog for the fat to sear this chicken off and cook it in and serve the bacon pieces with. The wine I'm using is what I'm supposed to be using for this. It's a Burgundy wine. It's all coming together right here in Sacramento Valley. Just trying to get that up to temp. Beautiful thing. We're super close. Look at the chicken next to this pot. It's just beautiful waiting over there for us. Beautiful. My phone's getting hot over here. I gotta back off, guys.